Around a week ago, I asked my editor, Kid Trouble, if he thought it was possible to break every single Halo map. He hit me with the I don't know because we basically didn't know if it was possible to get on the map. With how some of the maps and how linear they are, it can be difficult to traverse through some of the terrains to break it. So around the next couple of weeks, we made it our mission. Can we break out of every single Halo map? Now throughout this video, we made a difficulty scale in the top right that you're going to see. Basically, if you wanted to try some of these out of bounds. So if you ever see an easy symbol, means the 1 out of 5 difficulty, and you can probably knock this off. The normal symbol will be a 2 out of 5 difficulty. The heroic symbol will be a 3 out of 5 difficulty. The legendary symbol will be a 4 out of 5 difficulty. And the last symbol will be the 5 out of 5 difficulty, meaning you need to be near perfect to pull it off, or it's just very challenging and really difficult. So the first day of the new couple weeks, me and Trouble, we started our journey on the mission Pillar of Autumn. First mission we're going to tackle down is Pillar of Autumn, and this is one of the missions I was saying was probably too linear to break out of the map. But being Trouble was able to look around the internet and scavenge ourselves to find some of these out of bounds. Now right off the back, right in the cryo tube, you can actually jump back in the tube, and when it closes, you can position yourself to bump yourself out of bounds. You'll see speedrunners do this all the time in the first 3 seconds of the level. It's actually not that difficult once you get the hang of it. And later throughout the mission, we actually found another out of bounds. You'll come to the section with the life pod exits, and if you time a perfectly crouched jump in midair, you can actually jump through them and just run out of bounds on midair. Now out of here is actually very beautiful, especially if you switch to anniversary graphics. Very nice out of bounds. Definitely one of my favorites. On the mission Halo, once you get out in this first section with all the Marines and Covenant, once you finally clear everything, you get the Warthog, and you're gonna take the Warthog and go over to this wall over here and just start driving up it. There's nothing much to it. You just drive up until it eventually lets you out. And once you're out, you're just out of the map already. There is to a point where once you get out far enough, the game will just stop making you move and you can't control anything. No matter what movement you're holding, it won't let you move. And in the original games, you couldn't even revert checkpoint. You just had to turn on your Xbox to progress it. Now over on Truth and Reconciliation, we had to get our good friend Volt to show us how to do this out of bounds. Because basically, if you blow up this Wraith, once you get into the belly room of the ship, you can actually position yourself right in the wing of the Wraith so it can push you inside it. And now once you're inside it, any movement will actually send you upwards. If you do the right movements when looking at the right direction, it will send you upwards high enough to break out of the map. And you can actually just run around the rooftops here. This one's a little bit more complex, but it is definitely quite the reward once you actually do get out of the map. This one did stop me in trouble for a couple of weeks until Volt actually helped us. Now over on the Silent Cartographer, this is probably one of the hardest ones to get out of the way, and you have to do a few little things before you can actually do it. So starting out the mission, you actually have to make your round around the whole map until you get to the little button room where you can activate the button so the door stays open. Once you get there, you have to actually bring a Warthog through and ram it through the door. And after this, you just go ahead and activate the grunt cutscene. Once you come back, you have to drive the Warthog carefully so you land at the bottom. And now the hard part of the trick comes up. Once you're at the bottom, you have to line up a nade, so you drive the Warthog off while the nade explodes, so you launch all the way across the map room. And it's not even done yet. Once you're down on this little platform here, you have to shoot a rocket to the Warthog, flips all the way back to the bottom, and then you just drop down to where the Warthog is, and you're home free. You're at the bottom of the Silent Cartographer. This one's definitely a lot, but this is definitely one of the coolest ones I've ever seen. Over on the Assault Control Room, we found a few that we can do on this map. If you get right back in the Pelican at the start of the mission, you can actually just ride it all the way down to the bottom of the map. But other than that, we can actually do another trick called Bull, which stands for Banshee out of level. Basically, if you park a Banshee right between these doors and then fling yourself out of the map and then parkour all your way gently down to get back into the Banshee, you'll see that nothing's loaded in. You're just out of the map. You turn anniversary graphic to it, everything will in, but you can't make any physical contact with anything. So this is a really cool out of bounds. Solid Control one definitely has two of the cool ones. Over on 343 Guilty Spark, if you get back in the Pelican like at the Solid Control Room, this one will just fly you out of the map. So that making 343 one of the easiest ones too. Over on the Library, once you get to the third level where the longest door wait time is, where the door closes and you kind of just have to wait there until Guilty Spark does whatever he wants to do. If you go back when the door just closes in, you can actually position yourself right where the door pushes you in, and if you move to the right direction, it launches you up, and just like that, you're out of the map again. Over on Two Betrayals, we have Bull once again, but this time you have to position your Banshee right at the door, grab another Banshee, and you're going to use this Banshee to actually fling yourself out of the bounds. And once you're out of bounds, you just do tricky parkour again, get right back into the Banshee, Banshee. And just like before, everything's deloaded. You can't make physical contact with anything. You can just fly wherever you want. But again, this one is very difficult to set up. Over on the mission keys, at the very start, you can use this Flood that has no arms, can't really attack you. He's just there to be there. If you bring him all the way back to where you spawned in, you can actually shoot him. And he has a 50% chance of reviving. If he revives, he actually pushes you through the map. And the funny thing about this, once you're out of bounds, you can actually hop back into bounds and be at the end of the mission. Nothing's loaded in here. All the enemies are just stale and won't move or won't shoot you, but you can actually activate the cuts, and doing this will actually progress the mission. So once the cutscene's done, you can just go ahead and end the mission. But this is very cool to see, just knowing the enemies moving or anything like that. Right at the very start of the mall, if you position yourself in this quarter, the one that the Flood swing open with the door, once the door opens, you actually will send you upwards because the pressure launches you upwards, and you'll just be out of the map right at the start. Definitely another cool one where you can just jump out. You have to stay in anniversary mode because being in classic, you can't see anything. But a very cool out of bounds. And with that being said, we have finished every single CE out of bounds. It only gets harder from here on out. As the games get older, the games get more and more optimized for out of the map. So let's see if we can do it. We're gonna hop into our next game, Halo 2. Hopping into Cairo Station, we have our first Dead and Alive glitch that we're gonna do. If you remember in our 100 facts video, we talked about Dead and Alive just a little bit. Basically, Trouble has to kill me and then position himself to where I can't spawn. Then when we restart the mission, we have to do the exact same thing again. But this time, once we go all the way through the mission, get to Hangar 2, when Trouble kills me, he's actually gonna position himself into my body, which means we're basically gonna have two players in one body. And what happens is, depending on where I'm standing at, it can actually send you upwards through the map. So we've actually never seen this one before, but once we were doing it for a different glitch, we actually went upwards above Hangar 2 and Hangar 1, so we're kind of on that building. But the main goal of this Dead and Alive glitch we're trying to get is in Bomb Room. Once you get all the way to Bomb Room, I'm supposed to get crushed by this little like hammer thing in Bomb Room, and once it finally crushes me, it sends my body all the way down to the Bomb Room cutscene room, and we're out of the map in Cairo technically. We're not supposed to be here. We kind of just walk around, see the room, and it's just really cool to see from a different perspective like that. Over in Outskirts, probably the most easiest out of bounds to do. Just run up here, do a grenade jump, and you're already out of the map. You can just jump on these rooftops, just go anywhere you please. Definitely one of the easiest ones to do. It's almost like they intended you to get out of bounds here. Regardless if it was intended or not, it is still technically out of the map, and it skips a large portion out of the mission. Over on the mission Metropolis, probably one of the oldest out of bounds and cool Easter eggs known to man. If you once you get into the tunnel section, you bring a Banshee with you the whole time. You can actually hijack the Banshee once you interlocked with the load zone. Getting in this Banshee means you can just fly wherever the hell you want. There is no barrier, no extent to where you go, and this is how we found the cool Easter, like the soccer ball and the scarab gun. It's just you can go wherever you want, and that's technically breaking Metropolis in a whole. Over on the mission Arbiter, this is probably one of the hardest ones we've ever had to do, and it has to be shown to us by our buddy Hark. Fortunately, we don't have the footage of this without skulls and Acro. The reason we don't have this footage is because the trick is insanely hard, that Trouble and Hark could never get it to work, but it is possible without it. It's just much more difficult, and to save us some time, we did it with skulls, just to show you the potential and what to do if you wanted to potentially try this out. You have to use the Dead and Alive glitch. Once you kill your teammate at the start, you'll fly all the way to the bottom of the map to make sure he doesn't spawn. You'll do the same thing again, but this time you'll have the other player kill him and fly to the bottom of the map. Once you come back to the top of the map, he's gonna spawn, and you're gonna immediately just clip through the ground. Meaning we just broke Arbiter like that. You can clip basically to the end of the mission. Very cool. Over on the mission Oracle, this is one of the quite few rare ones where it can only be done with 2 players, but once you get into the halfway part of the mission where you're going up this elevator, if you actually send the elevator up and then send it back down, you'll be launched up the elevator. Unfortunately, your teammate will be teleported all the way to the bottom of the elevator where there's nothing. You're just out of the map and there's nowhere you can go. Quite funny to see too, and quite really a nice view you get from the second player perspective. Over on the mission Delta Halo, you can get out of bounds literally at the start of the mission by jumping over here and jumping out of bounds, and this is probably one of the biggest out of the maps I've ever seen in my life. I mean, you can go for minutes without even hitting the edge of the barrier. Like, you can just explore this one for hours. Okay, maybe not that long, but it is quite big. Over on the mission Regret, kind of the same thing out of bounds. If you kind of backtrack the way you came from Delta Halo to start the mission Regret, you can just get out of the map the same way you came from. It kind of looks like the same Delta Halo because it's the same level technically, so you can get out of the map. Over on the invite of Sacred Icon, where all the flood forms and everything kind of jumps down from, you can actually get up there by either sword flying up there, grenade jumping up there. There's multiple ways you can get up there, but once you're up there, you're out of the map, you feel free to explore any place out there. There's a little bit of an open area, not too much, not too far you can go, but yeah, still out of the map. Over on Quarantine Zone, you can just do the same. There's actually like a lot of out of bounds you can do by just getting on top of the map. We decided to show the most flashy one because we have to be a little extra. So my editor Trouble went out to this little pelican that has a scorpion in it, and you can actually continuously sword fly until you get out of the map. And doing a sword flight itself is difficult enough, but you have to keep hitting them, and if you fail one, you'll just fall to your death. So you have to continuously hit 5 or 6 in a row. He does it. And at the end of Quarantine, when you're on the gondola, if you just run to the back of the gondola and jump up these little ledges, you can just walk until you're out of the map on the gondola, and you can just sit here the whole gondola ride and not have to worry about enemy. Quite funny, literally. Over on the mission Gravemind, and this gave me and Trouble a headache to find an out of bounds, and we had to do something incredibly hard. We had to set up a butterfly, and when you start out, you'll have a brute on top of your head in this little outside section, and if you just keep spamming melee and switch weapons and jump, you can reach this little invisible platform, and you're free to walk out here. Very cool sight scene nonetheless. Over on the mission Uprising, you don't have to do nearly that, but you can get out of bounds very easily at the end of the mission by just jumping on this like tree here, and then just crouch jumping out the map, and you can just walk wherever you want. Again, you can actually end the mission from up here. It's quite mind-boggling view as well. Over on the mission High Charity, my boy Trouble had to do it again. Get a flood on his head, and when you get the flood finally on top of your head on High Charity, you can start butterflying similar to what we did on Gravemind all the way to this crashed pelican over here, and you can just see where this pelican is. It's a very cool look nonetheless, and very exciting. And if you actually do it longer and harder, you can eventually get to the bottom of the map, but that just takes way too much time to do. And over on the mission The Great Journey, once you save Johnson and Johnson hijacks the Scarab and he starts running back, you can actually, instead of getting in the Banshee to fly to the next zone, you can actually get in the Spectre. And once you get in the Spectre, you can actually just go underwater here and go up out of the map too. Definitely not intended what you're supposed to do, but it's kind of funny that water has no depth barriers and you can just drive wherever you want. But with that being said, that is Halo 2 done, and we're on to the next game, Halo 3. On Sierra 117, we can get out of the map right at the start of the level by just spamming A into this wall. You can actually get a ghost jump and just jump on this rock, and on this rock you can jump past the invisible barrier and just kind of walk on these little leaves here. Can't really go far, but you're out of the map on these little leaves here, and you can get a great view of Kilimanjaro from here. And a little bit later on the mission, like 10 seconds later, you can get out of the map again by just doing some tricky parkour on these rocks and just following these leaves over here, and you can just see the edge of the map and just skip this Sniper Jackal section entirely. Quite funny and quite cool that this is in the game. Over on the next mission, Crow's Nest, once you get to the hangar section where Phantoms will fly in, if you jump up on this little like ledge thing, you can jump on this turret. Once the Phantom is flying out, you have to stay in this like middle area so you don't get pushed out, or else you can like fly out of the Phantom. It's very, very difficult to kind of do. Once you're pushed out, you get back on the turret. While on the turret, you'll just wait until the Phantom just flies out of the map for you, and eventually the pilot will die and you'll just completely fall. But if you stay on the turret, you won't actually fall a timer. You can just walk on the bottom of Crow's Nest. Definitely the weirdest way to get out of the map, but it's definitely the coolest. On the next mission, Sava Highway, this one gave us a bit of a tricky thing. We didn't really know what counted as an imbalance. We didn't really know what to do, but we found at the end of the day we can do the same thing we did in Crows and get on that Phantom. Near the end of the mission, when you're in a little holdout section killing brutes and everything, you can jump on the turret with a double head jump and a trip mine equipment jump. Once you're in this Phantom, it will fly up and actually like stop because you're supposed to be out, and once you do get out, you'll just land on this invisible barrier, meaning you're at the top of the map and you can't really do anything, so you can just float on this invisible barrier. This is the only thing we can kind of find. We don't know if this counts out of bounds, but we count it anyways. It's not really that difficult to do, but it's quite funny to look at. Over on the mission Storm, right at the end of the mission, you can actually jump on these little boiler pots and just jump out of the map here. It's kind of a tight little jump because you're jumping right below the invisible elastic barrier, but once you're out of the map, you can just walk through buildings here out of the map and go as far as the barrier will take you. And then if you get bored, you can just jump back of the map and see the AA gun and destroy it if you want to. Over on the next mission, Floodgate, you can literally do the exact same thing you did on the Storm to get out of bounds by jumping on these boilers and jumping in the same part of the map. Can't really do much anything different. It's kind of the same out of bounds. There's really nothing major to it. But we thought that was kind of lame as it's kind of the same out of bounds, so we decided to find another one. Over at the end of the mission, Floodgate, if you do a little tricky parkour here and some little barrier movement to find the little holes in the crack, you can actually just get out of the map here and just walk on the invisible surface. Even though there's no floor, you can just walk on it. Quite funny here, and this one's actually really not that hard. Also on Floodgate, our friend PHL showed us this really cool trick you can do by grabbing a deployable cover and get into the end of the mission. Once Once you're at the end of the mission, you're gonna throw the deployable cover at your feet and walk slowly forward, and this will launch you forward. And since you're hitting a grapevine moment at the same time, you'll become invincible, meaning you can just splatter upwards out of the map, and doing this at the right moment will get you out of the map, and you're free to walk up there all you want, and it's not much. Over on the mission Arc, once you get into this big open area where the scarab comes, there's a giant amounts of raves. You actually have a big out of bounds you can do, which is quite funny. The first thing you need for those out of bounds is to grab a grab lift, and you get one of these in the middle section right where the scarab can be. The next thing you need is a chopper, and once you get the chopper, you're gonna drive on this right side of the map to go through the invisible barrier. You can't do this without a vehicle because the elastic barrier will just keep you out. Once you're through the barrier, you can leave the chopper behind and just walk on this right side of the map. This is technically still not out of the map, so we decided to keep going. And as you can see from this angle right here, this is literally just a copy and paste of the left and right side of the map. There's nothing too major to it, but if you keep following on the right side of this little area, you'll eventually come to this downward like slope that you can just walk up, and you'll have this little ledge that's too high for you to reach. This is where the grab lift comes in place. You throw the grab lift down and have a player underneath you so you can head jump once the grab lift height is reached. And me and Trouble actually almost failed this right when the grab lift exploded. I was able to jump off Trouble's head and get up top here. Once up top, you just keep walking, and you'll eventually hit a load zone. And once this load zone is hit, you'll be stuck in solid space and you're just frozen in place out of the map. Once you're in frozen solid space, it's kind of cool to look at. Over on the mission Covenant, we have the same little glitch you can do at the end with the two scarabs. If you get a ghost, for some reason we couldn't get Trouble a ghost. He was a prowler, and it was kind of funny that it still worked. If you drive a ghost out of the map here by boosting, you can just skip the elastic barrier and just be out of the map, and you can just see it top everything. If you drive on the invisible floor surface, you can actually hit another load zone, meaning wherever you hit this load zone, it will teleport you to where that load zone is corresponding to the level. We actually hit it where the second tower was, or where you're supposed to be in a Hornet to fly to the mission. We landed over here on the rocks. This one was quite funny to look at too, and yeah, depending on where you hit it, depending on where it's going to put you in the mission. Over on the mission Cortana, we actually needed 3 people to do this out of bounds, so we called our buddy Shizno, bro CE Halo Montager, so shouts to him for the help. But what we did at the start was grab the deployable cover at the start of the mission. We progressed it just a little bit, then we backtracked the whole mission. We had to do a head jump up with the gravity hammer to come back to the spawn of the mission. After a few tries it took us, we got to the start of the mission. We placed a deployable cover on where this giant hole was in the surface. We did a double head jump hammer launch to have someone up top. Once that person gets up top, he's going to stand in a specific location. We're going to have 2 people die at the same time, and once that happens, one of the person will actually just spawn out of the map, and we can have the other 2 people die and they'll spawn out there too. And yeah, it's a little open area. There's nothing much to it. There's a little ramp here. Other than that, there's really not much to this place in Cortana. On the final mission, Halo, once you get to the Warthog Run, around the 3rd roundabout, at the end where you're about to do the final jump up, if you go to around the left side, you can actually land on these little panels over here that you're not supposed to be. And if you drive all the way to the left side of the panels, you can actually hit an invisible wall. Once you hit that invisible wall, you're going to drive off until you hit an elastic barrier. Once you hit that elastic barrier, it will stop your fall timer, so you can just fall to the bottom of Halo. And from here, as long as you don't go backwards, you'll hit a death barrier. From here, you can just walk to the bottom of Halo, and just like that, you're at the bottom of the Warthog Run, somewhere you're totally not supposed to be. And I found this one was quite funny too, and quite hilarious. And just like that, we just finished the trilogy for Out of the Maps. Now we have to go on to ODST being our next game. Let me tell you, some of the ODST missions were tough. Now, over on Tiare Plaza, this is one of the missions that I was talking about that was either too linear or too short to find an out of the map section that we can access. So after looking around for a while, I remember one of my old friends, Sleepless Brew, telling me about this out of bounds that you can do at the start. So basically, at the very start of the mission, if you head to the left side, you can nade jump onto this little wall that's sticking out. Once you're up there, you can walk all the way towards this Covenant looking shield. Once you're on the Covenant shield, you just jump in. It's kind of just a complete replica of what Tiare Plaza looks like. There's just no enemies, no objective, no nothing. You're just there to explore. Very cool. This is one of the out of bounds that does look like it should be part of the map, so it is kind of confusing, but it is cool to look at. Over on the next mission, Uplift Reserve. This is another one that was really tricky because it's more of a driving mission, and there's barriers everywhere, and there's really nothing you can really do, but we did find something that includes a really hard setup. You start out with getting a brute shot from killing the brute shot brute. Once you do that, you're gonna drive this Warthog all the way up here to get through this little invisible barrier. It's a little hard to get through. It takes a little trial and error, but once you're there, you have to do these perfectly stick stack nade stack to launch yourself up there. And doing this perfectly ensures that you don't die, that you get enough height, and if you want to like explore, that the Warthog also gets enough height so you can explore with a car instead of on foot. And doing all of this rewards rewards you with out-of-map experience, and it's definitely worth it. Over in the next mission, Kazingo Boulevard, you'll get to this part of the mission where there's banshees flying down. There's like 3 raids in the section. If you're able to shoot down a banshee, you can't hijack it, but if you use the action button to get into a vehicle while sniping the brute out of the banshee, you can actually get into the banshee before it explodes. Doing this means you can break through the barrier of the map by ramming your banshee against a wall upwards to the barrier, and then you're just free to explore wherever you feel like on Kazinga. Over on the next mission, Oni Alpha Site, we found an out of bounds that is really difficult to get to because Oni is really just one part of the map. You really have the outside section and the inside section, so there's no really like breaking anywhere you can. But we found this clip online by Tremacious Trigosity, and the way we were able to get out of bounds was we needed 2 players, so me and Trouble hopped into a game. We cleared out the first section of the courtyard, and we perfectly timed a checkpoint to when the phantoms were coming in over top. Once that happened, I had Trouble jump onto the back of the Wraith at the same frame that I reverted checkpoint. This is what's known as a revert grab, so his Wraith input gets counted with the revert. So he's going to be on the back of the Wraith where the Wraith was at the time of the checkpoint get. Very complicated, I know, but basically he hijacked the Wraith from down below and now he's up top. Doing this, he can get out at a specific time to land on top of the Oni base that you can't be in. Very cool glitch to do, and surprisingly it's really not that hard to do. You can probably do it in your friends with like 5 minutes, and it's definitely fun to explore up here and see the skybox that you can normally see. Over on NMPD HQ, another small mission that's really just one section, so it's really hard to find it out of bounds, but I had something happen to me while speedrunning this mission a while ago where you usually use a fusion coil to boost yourself through the mission, but I've had it launch me too high before. So doing this, you can actually use a spike grenade to use this fusion coil to launch you out of the map. Very difficult, it's completely random when it happens, but it will launch you really fast and you can just get out of the map right here and can't really do anything. You'll just jump in place, just walk around, walk kind of slow in this place, but you're on the roof where the jackals can snipe you and it's awkward out of bounds. On the next mission, Kikowani Station. This mission, you're pretty much just in the Banshee the whole mission, so of course we're going to use that to our advantage. You remember Kazingo, we used the Banshee to break the barrier. We're going to do the same thing here. Once this first phantom leaves, we're going to use that, park our Banshee on top to break this first barrier, and with that, we're just kind of out of bounds and we can just explore wherever. And you can do it with pretty much any phantom on the map that leaves the area, so you can do it on this second phantom in the second area over here too, and you just break through the barrier and you can explore wherever you go. So Kikowani out of bounds, kind of dark, so the skybox is not really bright. Over on the mission Data Hive, this is one of the maps where to date we searched hours online and just nothing, and to this day there is really no out of bounds for Data Hive, and we're still searching, so if you know anywhere in the comments, let us know. But we did find this over on the ice section where the brutes are and the chieftains is. If you have one player stand back at the door while the other player hits the load, it completely deloads the last area so you can see solid space. That is technically out of the map by definition because that is out of the bounds. You're not supposed to be there. It is solid space. Going in there will kill you, but it's very cool to see. But to this day, there is really no out of bounds that we can find for Data Hive, and we're still searching. Maybe we'll update you guys in the future. With that being said, that brings us to our last mission, Coastal Highway. Now this out of bounds is very difficult to do because if you don't know the whole mission, you're either on a highway for the first 15 minutes or you're at an invite section. So the only place we realistically have to get out of bounds is the highway, and that's exactly what we do. The same thing we do with Uplift. You start out by lining a Warthog up on the ground over here, and you're gonna launch that one out with a couple nades and a rocket, and then you have to line up this other part Troop Hog over here and do a little nade stick stack and get into the Warthog as soon as it explodes. This Warthog that you're in can drive up to the barrier, but once you're at the barrier, you have to get at the hog. The other hog that you launched at before already broke through the barrier, so you can just get in it and just drive away. So once you're out here, you're free to explore anything. You can actually progress the mission by hitting triggers up top. If you hit the trigger in the wrong angle, you actually just get teleported back in, so you have to be kind of careful here. But yeah, it's a nice atmosphere up here, and that's ODST done, which brings us to our next game, Halo Reach. So before we get to Winter Contingency, I want to give a big shout out to a couple of our friends, THL himself and Hybrid from Tremacious Trigosity. Big shout out to Tremacious Trigosity in general, but these two helped us out with Reach, and with Reach being our lesser known game, we had to ask for help for a couple missions, and it definitely made it a lot easier in the long run. So now head into Winter Contingency. We start out on this long Falcon ride, and after the Falcon ride, we can get out and go left to these rocks over here. Once on these rocks, if if you sprint into this one rock and cancel your sprint midair, you can actually just sit on the barrier here and get out of the map that way. You can also do it on this other rock to get on top of these roofs right here, and you can actually see what's making that loud noise. If you play the game casually, it's actually just a skirmisher all along. But while we're out of bounds, if you kill an enemy and get his plasma pistol and hit the load the Falcon will spawn in, you can EMP the Falcon down. Once you get into the Falcon, you're not out of bounds, but you're on a Falcon in the first mission, which is crazy enough. But if you fly over to the Spirit over here, you can get stuck in between the Spirit, where the Spirit will fly you out of the barrier, and you can just explore wherever you want. You can even spawn in the outposts, which just skips the 2 other objectives you have to do before you get there, which is crazy to me. So very, very crazy out of bounds. Next up is Oni Sword Base. Once you just progress the mission normal enough to where you have to come back to the courtyard, you have to get the ghost over the barricade. You can either do the hunter skip method that we saw Thumbs do in our last video, or you can conk it over. Once the ghost is over, you're going to go ahead and drive the ghost up this wall to break the barrier. Once you're out of the barrier, you can get out of the ghost and you're going to walk along this ledge to get to these rocks over here. Then you're going to conk jump up the rocks and walk to the top of Sword Base. Once at the top of Sword Base, you're going to walk over to this other base thing, and then you are out of the map, way out of the map. You can see everything. You got some floating solid bushes over here. You got some 2D trucks, which is funny. You got some floating lights, floating boxes, just everything. This out of bounds is huge, and if you and a friend are on, definitely do it. This out of bounds is insanely huge, and it's actually crazy. Up next is Nightfall, and we had our friend PHL show us these 2 out of bounds. The first one is over in this first section, where if you jump on this lamp and then do a grenade jump up top, you can actually get in this little hidden area behind this fence. Technically still in the map, but you're not supposed to be here, and it's kind of cool looking. But the second out of bounds definitely breaks the map. If you do a nade jump in this corner over here to get up these rocks, you actually skip a trigger. So once you get to the end of the mission, the ending of the mission won't trigger, so you're just free to walk over here, and you can actually jump down to the visible floor on the ground. I thought that was pretty funny to see, and there's not much to explore here, but there's a little bit. Now, a very hard trick to do on Nightfall that we didn't end up pulling off because it's just really hard to do, but if you armor lock off of June's head at the right angle, you can actually launch yourself out of the map. So far out of the map, there's actually a hidden Banshee. Not a lot of people know about this, but yeah, there is a hidden Banshee. It's kind of funny. Over on tip of the spear, if you launch a ghost out of the map with a grenade and a conch rifle, then get the warthog that spawns from the first pelican, launch it out of bounds, then get in the ghost that you launched, drive through the barrier that's out there, get out, and then get in the ghost that you launched out of bounds. You're free to explore anywhere here. This whole section's out of bounds. You can go anywhere here. Very big, very large section of the game. Over on Long Night of Solace, with this mission being a giant space mission and a Corvette scene, there's really no out of bounds we can do other than the first section before we get to space. So we start out by going left to where the Spirit drops off this Wraith, and we're going to set up a revert grab. The same thing we did in Oni Alpha Site, we're going to do here. Once we get the revert grab set up, we're going to have our friend Hybrid, also shouts to Hybrid for this mission, he helped a lot. We're going to have our friend Hybrid jump off when the revert grab comes, and if he survives, we're out of the map. And once you're out of the map, you can explore. You can also fly one of the Seraphs if you EMP it down, and that's actually one of the coolest tricks and discoveries I've ever seen in my life. Flying a Seraph, and yes, this is before you could fly a Seraph in custom games. Over on Exodus, we get to the end of the mission where you have to hit these 3 buttons and 3 jammers and all that. Once you hit one of the buttons, a Falcon will come in. Once you see this Falcon, you need to have armor lock. Once you have armor lock, you get on top of the Falcon, and to stay on the Falcon while it drives you out of bounds, you must spam armor lock in a position. Armor lock makes you stay still and won't move, so if you're spamming it over and over and over again, you won't move from the position you are no matter what vehicle is flying you. So you keep doing this over and over and over again until you're out of the map, and once you're out of the map, this is probably similar to one of the Delta Halo out of bounds for how huge it is. I wish I was joking, but the footage that we gathered out of bounds here was over 50 minutes long. We were just out here exploring. It's actually crazy. This is one of the ones I definitely recommend to do, this in Sword Base. Over on New Alexandria, this one posed a challenge, because if you don't know about New Alexandria, it's just a mission where you're in the same area, so there's no way to like break it. At least that's what me and Trouble thought. If you do the Easter egg where you get a Pelican or a Phantom by hitting this button over here, then flying through this arch, once you're in the Pelican and Phantom, all the barriers despawn and you can just fly wherever you want. But doing this in co-op, if you're on one of the turrets, you can clip through walls. So if you go over here to this one building and then have a co-op runner on the turret, you just clip to the wall, and now we're in the New Alexandria cutscene room where the final cutscene is. Very crazy. Another one that Hybrid showed us that absolutely blew our mind. Very, very crazy. Over on the package, we do what I was kind of talking about on Nightfall to get to the hidden Banshee, but this time we do it to launch through a barrier. We do the armor lock launch, and then we continue to jump out of bounds. Then we did the Banshee's Easter egg and flew to a random antenna from the end cutscene. Then we made our way over to the cave section section of package. Then Hybrid used the Banshee to flip out of bounds. Once out of bounds, he flew Trouble up to the artifact Halsey was researching, which is really cool and interesting to see the little out of bounds functions here. There are these solid ledges that Trouble landed on, and there's also this random empty cave that's just out here, which is really weird. Also, while we're here at the end of the mission, if you get a ghost from one of the phantoms that a ghost drops down, you can actually clip into this door over here, and yeah, that's all. You just clip into the door and you're stuck here. This is actually where the Halsey's Lab Easter egg is supposed to be, but if you clip through it, you just get stuck here, and there's nothing really much to it. Over on Pillar of Autumn, we get this mongoose over here with this conch elite, and we conch the mongoose out of bounds. Once we do that, we hit a conch jump that may or may not have taken way too many tries, and you're just out of bounds. You're free to explore this out of bounds with the mongoose, and are you sensing the pattern with Reach? It's just break this barrier and you're out of bounds. Like, every level has that. But with that being said, Halo Reach is done. We actually broke through every map on Halo Reach, and now next up is Halo 4. Now over on the first mission, Dawn from Halo 4, we have a couple of out of bounds that you can do. The first one is at the start of the game, or when you get out of the crowd tube. If you walk your way over to this area, if you jump on this ledge and then crouch and uncrouch and crouch again at the exact like frame, you just go out of bounds. Like, this area is normally solid. You have to clip your way out of bounds. Look, I speedrun Halo 4 and I still don't know how this out of bound works, but yeah, you clip your way out of bounds and you're just out of bounds. And from this out of bounds, you can just climb up the elevator. That's normally a cutscene that you have to play, but no, you can just climb up the elevator and just be on your way. This out of bounds is very weird, very difficult. Don't ever attempt, but I had to include it nonetheless. You could do the safer method, which is climb up the elevator and then do a grenade jump out of bounds, which used to be the old way we got out of bounds. Or if you're an extremist, you can do a double grenade jump to get out of bounds. Whatever you choose, just hope you're having fun playing Dawn. Over on Requiem, once you get to this bridge section, you can get a Banshee, and if you park this Banshee into this corner, then shoot it with a conch rifle about 2 or 3 times till it centers over this door. Once you activate the next load, you can run back into the door that's closed and hijack the Banshee through the air, and from this you can just be out of the map flying with the Banshee, and you can actually start the next sequence to end the level and actually end the level in a Banshee. Air doesn't have to be loaded in. As long as you hit the triggers, the levels win. Very, very cool. Over on Forerunner, we have button jump, where simply if you jump on this button, then on this ledge over here, you can just jump on these rocks over here and you're just out of the map already. You can run around these rocks and jump on this higher area up. That's kind of cool to look at. That's kind of all there is to do over here. There's nothing really funny you can do over here. And then later throughout the mission, you can get to this Banshee and the second pylon, and if you fly this Banshee all the way up and then go all the way down, you just go over and under 2 barriers, and then you're just out of the map in solid space. Again, nothing really much you can do here, but pretty cool to look at nonetheless. And at the ghost section of this game, if you drive your ghost up these walls at the right angle, you can actually get out of the map on the ghost run and just drive out of the map. Over on Infinity, despite this being a really big mission, there really wasn't much out of bounds that I could find. In fact, there was only one that I really could find. It was at the very start, the first 30 seconds. Once you get to this little tree area here, you can just jump up it and then you're out of bounds. You're just out of bounds in this little tree section. There's nothing much you can do here. You can just run on these higher up trees, but yeah, that's all I could find. Over on Reclaimer, once you get to these 3 cores, you can drive a vehicle off this rock, and no matter how you drive it, where you drive it, how fast you drive it, this area will always launch you in the air as long as the 3 cores are still alive. And if you get out of the vehicle at the right moment, you just stay on top of the barrier and you're free to go wherever you want. Very weird out of bounds, because this launch still makes no sense to me. You just launch in the air as long as you have a vehicle on that rock. Very, very cool. But once you get over to this little Forerunner section in the level, you can jump up this elevator shaft and stand on top of the elevator, and there's a little like hole you can just go out of bounds here. Again, very weird, but it works. Over in the level Shutdown, there's a couple out of bounds you can do on this mission. The first one requires 2 people. If 2 people hit this same button on the gondola section, if 2 people hit the same button at the same time, one person become invincible, meaning he can just survive anything. Fall timers, a 10-second death barrier, and just survive. So you can just walk around the bottom of the map in each section no matter where. Very, very cool trick. And over at the last tower, if you hit this pillar at the right angle, it will launch you all the way in the air, and there's this little hidden platform you can see out here. Serves no purpose. There's nothing you can do with it. It's just a hidden platform in the middle of the sky. You can stand on it. That's about all. Over over on Composer, we have this little first outside section. If you do a grenade jump or a spring jump, you can just get out of bounds really easy like that. And if you wait outside till this area spawns in, you can just jump on top of the roof and start running here. If you fall back in bounds, you can go to the second airlock and you can just hit a grenade jump out here to get back out of bounds once again. And over on the end fight, if you hijack a Banshee on the final wave, you can fly into this little hole area that's just not solid and fly into the end. Over on the last mission, Midnight, you can get out of bounds in the first 5 seconds of the mission by going forward and going to the left, and you're out of bounds in the sliding section. There's a lot of invisible walls that you have to look out for, but to my understanding, you can pretty much fly anywhere you want, and this is a very cool out of bounds because, you know, Earth, the moon, is all out here, and the Halo 4 textures and the skybox is kind of interesting here. But with that being said, Halo 4 is done, and we go into our final game, Halo 5. Over on the first mission, Osiris, you can do this turret launch by jumping into this corner of the turret and launching you in the air. And if you use the ground pound mechanic, you can ground pound on the next section just higher up and you're just out of the map. Not really much you can go from here. You can hit the button from the other side and jump back bounds. And on the next section, on the far back turret, you can do the same thing, do a turret launch and get right back out of the map. Again, not much you can do from out here, but still out of the map nonetheless. Over on the next mission, Blue Team, if you do a Halo 5 grenade jump, I have to specify Halo 5 grenade jump because it's a difference. If you do it just right, you can get out of bounds by clambering. Over in the elevator section of Blue Team, if you jump on top of the elevator and walk ever so slightly, you'll teleport into this little pocket. Once in this pocket, you can jump out and then clamber on the other side and you can be fully out. Now from here, if you want to do some really cool things, you can walk your way all the way on this ledge and do some tricky parkour jumps to eventually you'll have to ground pound all the way in the center and you'll be on top of the map and you can basically see the entire open area with the Banshees and the chorus on top. But you can continue the way down and then you can eventually get back into bounds into the hangar by just crouching into this wall over here. Over on the mission Glass, at the very start of the mission when the doors start opening up, if you run over here to activate the door to close and then run back to the door, you can get launched by the door extremely fast, and if you launch just right, you can actually launch yourself out of the map. This one's very cool and I like. Now I decided to include Meridian Station even though it's not technically a level, only just because I did find out of the map on this level. If you stand between these two Marines and walk forward, these Marines will just launch you in the sky very high and then you can just launch past barriers and just fall through the map. This one's very funny. Over on the next mission, Unconfirmed, once you get to these binary sniper section, you can just boost into this wall at the right angle and you go in the air and you can clamber on this invisible wall and just jump into the outside wall and just be out of bounds. You can just run on this roof here. You can spawn in the next section, run outside on this roof. Very cool area. And at the last part of the mission, where the Warden Eternal is, if you have the Warden Eternal launch you with his shoulder, he can actually launch you all the way in the air to the point you can ground pound outside the map. This one's really intense and really cool. Over in the next mission, Evac, once you get to the first clear, you can do some parkour jumps just to get on these rocks over here and just see throughout the map. There's nothing really much you can do here, just on the rocks and having a good time. Over the next mission, Reunion, at the very start, the first 5 seconds, if you jump and crouch just at the right moment, you can get on top of this ledge here and just be inside this building. And if you can get back in the bounds, you can just be running on top of everything. And over at the end of the mission, when you're in the Phaeton, you can just clip through the wall here. There's just no physical barrier there. You just clip to the wall. It's very funny and it's super easy to do. All you do is just fly into the wall. Over on Swords of St. Helios, once you get to the Hunter clear where the Spirit comes in, if you go on these rocks over here, you can jump on the Spirit that's flying the Hunters in and you can just run on top of these rocks that you're not supposed to be at and just run to the next section. You can run over on this left side, or you can stay on the Spirit and just have it take you over here if you don't feel like doing the parkour. Over on Enemy Lines, I couldn't find the out of bounds for the longest time in this mission, but I eventually found a little hole in this map where if you jump just right, you can clamber on this little pillar, and there's just a hole here that will just make you fall down all the way to the ground. Not sure why this is in here. I'll take it. It was the longest time I've waited to do a map. I spent about 2 or 3 hours looking here. Very, very funky. Over on Battle of Zion, right at the very start of the mission, if you jump on these two little pod, you can just jump out of the map right here if you do it perfectly boost and ground pound, and there's nothing here at all. It's just you're out of the map. You're free to walk, run, whatever. You can just instantly jump back inbounds by doing a jump like this. There's just nothing there. You just skip a whole first encounter. On Genesis, right after you get done riding the Guardian down, you can jump up these rocks and then get on this very high tree branch, jump across to the elevator and just be on top of this elevator. Just run it up, up, and up. On the mission, the Break-In, once you get to the last gondola ride, if you beat the gondola before it ends, you can position yourself right when the gondola is about to close, boost into the gondola, and it will launch you all the way to the sky limit, and you can ground pound on this random invisible walkway that's just here for no reason. Just walk on it. And finally, our last mission, the Mission Guardians. What better way to end it than finding a random hole in the ground that's right here. All you have to do is walk into this hole and you just fall right through. If you time it just right, you can actually survive this fall and land on this little like outside area and just jump up here. You can actually be outside this little area and get into the gondola pretty early. But other than that, that is every single Halo mission out of the map. And boy, oh boy, this took a while to do. So I want to give a big shout outs to everyone who's helped us make this video. Big shout outs to my editor Trouble. Big shout outs to Thumbs, Hybrid, Tremacitric, Oxity, PHL, my friend Sleepless Blue, Volt, and Nervy. So if you want to see more content like this, make sure you like and subscribe. And make sure you consider joining our Discord in the link below to get updated on future videos that we're doing and whatnot. And if you made it this far, make sure you comment your favorite Halo CE fact down below for a chance to be featured in one of our new videos coming up. But with that being said, you guys have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.